Hello, everybody. He's G. I actually received a couple days ago in the mail because did a video on the R.A. Davis Tomahawk. I called them last week to see if they can send me the book that didn't come in the same box, and they were surprised that it didn't ship out initially. So they were pretty quick about that. So I got a copy of Instructions and Hints for Assembling Pipe Tomahawks, including secrets of drilling handles, pouring pewter inlays, filing, and finishing, etc. The new revised and expanded edition, written and illustrated by Gerald Gutchess and Alan Gutchess. I think Gerald passed away a while ago. There's something, front cover's kind of like, it got bent too easily. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I could probably press it somehow. Yeah, he passed away in 2000. I'm assuming he's the father of Alan. So, this is a second printing from April 2001. The father passed away in 2000. So it gives an intro. This book is really cool. Okay. Like, for one, like, there's things I was already planning on doing with this Tomahawk that I've kind of seen hints in the Tomahawk group on Facebook. And, so there's good information there to be found in that group. And even, oh geez, I just forgot, Gotkin. I think he was involved in making the original Chingachgook Last of the Mohicans Tomahawk. He's been giving me advice as well. I mean, it's cool when someone who's been in the business for a while of making this type of stuff is willing to give you advice. So I really appreciate that. He's a gentleman and a scholar. And, you know, as I was waiting to get this book in the mail, I was being given advice. And then I got the book and I'm like, wow, like, a lot of what they're talking about is already here. But it's nice to get direct personal support and advice from those who've done it outside of the people who wrote the book and who are selling, you know, these products essentially. I mean, I'm not sure if the Gotkins are actually connected with R.E. Davis or Log Cabin, who now owns R.E. Davis. But in any case, yeah. I mean, you look at the images of the castings of the Tomahawks, and it's pretty obvious that it's the R.E. Davis ones. So, but yeah, they give you advice on choosing a casting, you know, filing, shaping, and punch work. Like, there's things when it comes to the punch work, like, you actually basically show you how to make a punch. Taking a metal punch and then basically grinding it flat, annealing it, grinding it flat, and then drilling a hole with, like, you know, either a hand drill or a electric drill or you know, drill press, and then just making a little dot. And then, of course, hardening, tempering the actual piece, the new tool, and then using that along the ridges of the Tomahawk itself. And I'm thinking, man, I've seen the file work done, the little punch work I hadn't seen done. So it's pretty cool. There's, like, also etchings of native chiefs with their pipe tomahawks. There's advice on how to do, like, brass inlays. You know, like, how to put the tomahawk on a lathe and to make some indentations that you can then afterwards put brass or whatever other material you want into it as an inlay. There's advice on how to make cutouts inside the head, how to put knife and moon and heart shapes into the tomahawk itself, and how you can basically put silver inlays, how you can kind of, yeah, I mean, how you can engrave these shapes, and then afterwards you can take a piece of metal and ball peen it in there, because you will have made sort of a dovetail shape on the bottom So if you have like, let's just say here's a circle, right? And then you're looking circles this way. Well, the top is flat, but the bottom, it kind of dovetails out and the bottom part dovetails up. So you want to like engrave it that way so that you can then ball peen these pieces of metal into it. It's pretty cool. I mean, I want to do that one of these days, whether you're using brass or silver or, you know, nickel silver. It goes over the brass headed pipe axes and how they typically tended to have a metal bit with a dovetail cut into the blade that then you can solder on or you can even peen on. They weren't very strong, but they were used in combat. There's the book provides anecdotes to that effect. It goes over how you want to polish the blade before you do anything else to it. Like one thing I got to do on this guy is I need to take a file and even wrap the file in sandpaper. That's their advice. And to really clean out the inside without changing too much of the overall shape. And just so you guys understand, like, I can still see, like, what's going to happen is right where these metallic, you know, imprints are, I'm going to be going past that point by about probably half of an inch. And then I'm going to have to stop. And there might still be a gap between this, you know, inside diameter and the actual outside diameter of this. So it's going to be important for me, one, to get it as close as possible, but then once I've accomplished that, to go ahead and attach some leather, glue it on basically here, shove that thing on as hard as possible so it's not going to move anymore. Cut the leather off of both sides, and then at that point go ahead and do things like dyeing the wood. Now, before I dye the wood, I'm going to fit this first. And before I fit this, I got to clean the eye of this head, okay? And then I can go ahead and start carving things out of this handle and casting some pewter. Now, they don't recommend, and the guys in the group don't recommend casting silver solder onto the wood. They say pewter might singe the wood a little bit, but it'll sand right out. And there's good advice in this book on how to cast the pewter, okay? And the idea I mentioned in the previous video, how like I would kind of thin down about an inch of this and maybe add a couple inches. That very advice is contained in the book, okay? And they even suggested for this hole, bore out a little bit more, stick another piece of wood in there, drill a hole through that piece of wood that's kind of short, and then you'll be doing casting around that. There might be a little bit of that wood sticking out at the end, possibly. Or a piece of brass, I've seen that, you know, but I would probably want to remove that I would want to be like, you know, a little tiny piece of wood, because, you know, I'm just kind of a little more sketchy about that. I'd rather have the actual final end of it be cast in metal because it looks cooler. You can pommel somebody in the face with it. So, but we'll see. In any case, this has some specific work that has to be done. Even once I clean this entire piece, I then have to, and Larry Gotkin, not just Gotkin, but Larry Gotkin suggests, you know, taking about 1.5 inches and hardening that and tempering the whole piece. And I'm slightly paraphrasing what he said, what he wrote. But yeah, he said about 1.5 inches from the bit in. So that's the plan. I'll plan to harden that much of the blade, all the full length or full width of the blade, 1 inch long going in. And then after that, do a tempering process. Now, hopefully my MAP gas will work. I'm going to do some more research on that. I've seen people use MAP gas torches to do stuff like this, but I'm going to do a double take on that. Okay. But I still got to file all this stuff down. And to be honest, because all of this nice outside stuff is actually scale, it has to get filed or sanded off. That even means that these little recessed little creases, all that's got to get filed too. I do have an array of files, which I will be using. So that's going to be part of the process. So I realize that this one piece right here is a lot more work than the price you're paying for. And the price you're paying for is like $35 for that head. So it's about like $45 for this thing. And it's about, like, I think $18 for this book. Now, I'm not going to buy this again. You know, if I buy a kit again, I won't buy the kit. You know, but, oh yeah, think about pewter. I did some research on pewter because I decided to go to the thrift shop yesterday and look for some really inexpensive pewter that I can use on these castings. They also use Britannia pewter, and I didn't know why. I looked it up, and it turns out that even stuff made in the 1970s, even from Sheffield, England, still had most likely some amount of lead in it. Now, I have a lead testing kit that is going to be coming in the mail tomorrow from Amazon. One of these pieces of pewter is probably, almost certainly, has lead content. It's darker. And if that's the case, I'm going to chuck it. Okay. But the other two, the ones that have the Sheffield, England on them, I'm going to test those and see if they show up as having lead content. If they don't, good. I will break those down and turn those into the castings I need for this. I didn't pay much for this stuff, but I'm going to want to do that. Okay. If it's all containing lead content, I'm going to chuck all of it, and I'm going to have to order some stuff. I don't really want to pay $8 for a quarter pound of pewter, but that's basically the going rate. So it's what Larry Godkin suggested doing, get Britannia from Track of the Wolf. Although R.E. Davis / Log Cabin also carries it. So there's some advice on engraving onto the blade itself, which they admit that you want to get other books on the subject because that's not really the purpose of this book. But they do go over a little bit of that. They cover the haft and how you can poke holes in it. There's either the pre-drilled ones like this, because the piece of wood this is literally not the center of the tree itself. You can tell just from this alone, from the grain, you can tell that it's not the center of the log. But if you have the center of the log, you can actually take a piece of brass or copper or a long rod, and you can just heat it up and basically burn a hole through the soft core of the tree. What that means is that the center of the tree is going to become this. So colonial guys did have the poker, but they also had the means to properly drill holes. Not all Indians had that ability. So let's see. And then section I hadn't looked at before. Yeah, it basically goes over, you know, oh, wow. Yeah, hadn't looked at this before, but basically, you know, drilling a hole with a lathe, taking a square wood stock and using that to make the handle, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to pre-purchase these whenever I need to do this, whenever I feel inclined. Oh, you know, Long Warrior, King of the Seminoles. That's cool. They do cover, I did notice this earlier, different select cross profiles, or I mean, you might say cross sections if you're talking about swords. But in this case, you know, it's wood and half, so cross profiles, different shapes that were known historically to have been used. It shows you for the inlay decoration, if you're going to cast pewter, how to, you know, first you carve all the shapes, then you kind of like, you can wrap a bunch of manila file folder around it, and then tape it up, and then build like a dam, you totally secure the thing. And also that's for both the inlays on the handle, but also how to pour the pewter mouthpiece. And it's cool. They also say to use the auto body file, which I do happen to have, where it's just got the little crescent shapes all the way up instead of the hash marks crisscrossing. So now I have an actual specific use for that file. And they show some examples of pewter work from period examples, things you can carve into the wood and then cast into it. So end cap construction, so like this piece right here, if you want to do like silver, they do some silver inlay, example, but they're not talking about casting in silver solder, which I realize now heats up at a higher temperature. Others have suggested that in the Tomahawk group. Thank you guys. Because I was going to be melting silver solder, which might still work, but it definitely would singe more easily. So pewter and lead, because I melted both when I was like, 14. Don't melt lead unless you're making bullets. I wasn't. It melts easily. It'll melt in an aluminum pot or pan, like literally. So it's pretty soft. They're both pretty soft. So yeah. But yeah, different methods of end cap construction and how to basically, you want to braid. If you're gonna make like a mouthpiece out of silver, you want to use sheet metal, and you want to pull it apart, hold it together with wires, and then braze it, and then reattach it. Then it gives some also advice on finishing the half, like sanding, and I need to actually read this section before I get too much into it. But yeah, doing a final connection of the piece. Very cool book. I highly recommend this. It's not expensive. If you buy one of the R.A. Davis kits, you will have, the book is supposed to come with that if you're buying it from Log Cabin / R.A. Davis. So, but then after you get the book once, like I said, don't buy the kits, just buy the heads and the handles and the pewter. Get the basic supplies you need. I didn't get the pewter. I didn't get the German silver inlays. I thought, I don't need that. I was going to do silver solder. I know better now. But yeah, I just got to find some pewter or order from them. So next time I order a Tomahawk head, when I get the English head, that's when I'll go ahead and probably order more of the other stuff from them. But I still have a lot of work to do. I'm really looking forward to carving this out once I have this all situated, and once I have the inside of this kind of dealt with. I'm not necessarily looking forward to all the other stuff I got to do this. So at this point, right, I mean, maybe I'm just kind of dealing with some, I broke my tooth the other day eating a piece of hard candy, and I'm having pains in my right leg, old injuries flaring up. That might be caused partly by this over the course of the last 2 years, because I haven't had a crown on this thing in a couple years, and I've been too busy to deal with it, to be honest, during the week when everyone who can help me with that medically would be open, and whenever my medical insurance would be available to discuss such matters. I've been working the whole time and just too busy. But don't neglect your health. Don't neglect your teeth. I got to get this taken care of ASAP. So as I think about that, I'm like, been resting all weekend. That's why I didn't carve any of this. It's why I didn't file the inside of any of this. So I'll get to that in a more appropriate time, hopefully this next week. Hopefully I can get all my appointments taken care of. I do see the doctor on Tuesday, on my birthday. So I don't have to work that day. Anyway, enough of that. But once my stuff's more situated, I will look more forward to getting this taken care of. But yes, a lot of work, a lot of filing, a lot of sanding. You're going to have to probably hammer this thing a little bit straighter because it's not perfectly straight, as I mentioned before. Yeah, you can tell right there, it's warped from the casting. It could be fixed. This isn't tempered yet, okay? Or it's not hardened or tempered yet, I should say. But then, yeah, you'll have to do those processes as well. And then for this guy right here, all the ropings that you see on the bowl, I may have to take one of my sharp files and just just to get the scale out. But then once this thing's done, once I have it all tempered and hardened and tempered, and this is finally ready for me to stick this thing onto, I'm going to use some Oxbow Blue or Brownells. I have one of the two in my shop. And I'm going to go ahead and actually blacken the steel, because that's the way I want it to look. Most of these guys are doing the same thing. So if you're on the Tomahawk group on Facebook and you're looking at these guys work, you know what I'm talking about, okay? And if you're not on the Tomahawk group and you want to get into Tomahawk making, go on and join the Tomahawk group, okay? And again, I'm going to stress, go ahead and order these things from R.E. Davis / Log Cabin. And yeah, definitely read this book. If you're good with tools, it'll be kind of easy to understand, and you won't be sorry. All right, thank you.